Our next talk is on a subject that is often neglected or overlooked. In fact, we had a question today about it. It's in fact a core pillar of One Health and pandemic preparedness and response, and that is public awareness and engagement. COVID-19 highlighted to us how a break in public trust can exacerbate the situation, but also jeopardize outbreak response or control efforts. Therefore, next we have Mr. Max Brooks, who will give us some insights about pandemics and public engagement. Mr. Max Brooks is the best-selling author of the books World War Z and Germ Warfare. I'm sure many of you have also watched the movie starring Brad Pitt. Max is also a senior non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council's Brent Socroft Center for Strategy and Security and the Modern War Institute at West Point. Please welcome Max, who will give us a pre-recorded talk, but afterwards he will be here virtually live for some Q&A.
Hello, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me. In my line of work, we have a golden rule: know your audience. And since I know who I'm talking to, I know that some of you are probably wondering, why are we listening to this guy? Which makes sense. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I am a novelist. And a novelist who puts things like zombies and Bigfoot and the video game Minecraft in my books. But that's not what my books are about. I write about preparing for and adapting to crisis. And I use zombies and Bigfoot and Minecraft as a way of engaging my audience. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about: engaging the public. Before I do that, I just want to give you a fair warning. I'm going to say some stuff that's going to make some people really uncomfortable. Probably so uncomfortable that I get banned from ever going to those beautiful, wonderful countries of theirs. And that's a shame. But you know what's more of a shame is a lot of other people can't go see those countries because they're dead. And that's why I'm going to have to talk to you frankly. That's why for a lot of these conferences I'm brought in to say the things that a lot of people are thinking. The stakes are too high to be polite right now. We need to be honest with each other. Where was I? Oh, that's right, public engagement. When I was working for the Blue Ribbon Biodefense Panel before COVID, and they were trying to get America ready for a germ attack, they had hearings up on Capitol Hill, and they brought me in to speak, and I told them that even though they had all these wonderful experts set up, medicine, science, logistics, intel, they didn't have one public affairs expert. Not one person who could take all this expert knowledge and translate it into a language that regular people could understand. And that is critical in a pandemic, because if you don't have the public on board, it doesn't matter how much science and tech and industry and resources you pile up. You don't have anything. And that's because in a pandemic, you're fighting a war against an enemy that can copy itself and turn the public against itself. So, like it or not, in a war against a microscopic enemy, everyone's a soldier. But how do you get them to understand that? How do you get your people to protect themselves? And this is where it's going to get a little thorny, because we're talking about two different systems on this planet. The world is crystallizing into two camps: democracy and autocracy. And both come with their own sets of strengths and challenges. And as the proud member of a democracy, I can tell you there are a lot of challenges. And they're all right up front. Because if you have the demo in democracy, the premise that the people should govern themselves, you got to get those people ready. And that comes with so much homework. You got to invest in schools, and you got to have dedicated teachers who not only teach the new citizens how to read and write, but also math and science. And not just for math and science sake. The reason that we teach math and science, really, is to teach the basic logic behind it. to get our citizens to understand that there are such things as objective facts. Not what you feel, not what you believe, not what you want to believe, not your truth, the truth. And that's only the beginning of the puzzle. Because once you have gotten your citizenry to accept that there are basic facts, you then need to have a free press corps to report the facts and tell the people not what they want to hear, but what they need to hear. So then they can make informed choices when electing their leaders. And then those leaders have to be open and honest and smart, and they've got to tirelessly build and maintain trust with the people that voted for them. And, especially in a pandemic, find a million ways to get them to cooperate. Because if you don't do that, if all these different pieces of the puzzle aren't working together over and over again, it all falls apart. In my country, we have a saying, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And in COVID, we saw what happened when we forgot the eternal part. Dr. Anthony Fauci should be a national hero. The man has probably saved more lives than Dwight D. Eisenhower. There should be a statue of him as big as the Statue of Liberty. It should be next to the Statue of Liberty. It should be Dr. Fauci with liberty like this. But that's not going to happen because 1/3 of my fellow Americans don't trust him, don't believe him, and outright despise him. This man is going to have to start looking over his shoulder the rest of his life and worry about people who he was just trying to save. How did we get here? What happened? Well, it didn't happen overnight. What we witnessed in my country was the product of decades, generations in the making. It started in the 1960s when America's youth lost faith in their government, and their government didn't do anything to restore that faith. As a matter of fact, in the 1980s, the President of the United States said, government is not the solution to our problems, government is the problem. Well, how is that true? If you have a government of the people, and the government's the problem, then the people must be the problem. Maybe Ronald Reagan was right, because we've got no one to blame but ourselves. We defunded our schools. We deregulated the media and let it fuse with entertainment for profit. And when the internet came about, we didn't do anything to regulate it. We didn't even try. And that's never happened before in the history of humanity. Whenever you have a world-changing technology, the grown-ups swoop in to make sure that they build a fireplace around that fire so it doesn't burn down our house. Can you imagine when we split the atom or learned to fly if we had said, oh, no, those industries will police themselves? No. But that's what we did with the internet. We let anybody say anything to anyone. And because we had defunded our schools and deregulated our media, too many Americans believed whatever they were told. Some of it was neglect, and some of it was on purpose. Some of it even came from a foreign country who wished to do us harm. And that perfect storm meant that when COVID hit, we lost more Americans than in all our wars put together. Our system didn't work. Now, once again, I know my audience, and I know some people who are not from a democracy might say, well, no, it's not that your system didn't work, it's that your system can't work. Democracies are inherently slow and inefficient and chaotic, and they just simply can't protect their people the way autocracies can. Well, to these people I say, look to another democracy that did work, the country of Taiwan. They did not have a fraction of the resources of the big bad USA. But what they do have is a disciplined, intelligent, responsible citizenry who understand what it takes to govern yourself. And they did. Enough people did their part that in the darkest days of COVID, while we in America were burying our dead en masse, they were shooting off fireworks celebrating their success. So the lesson of the United States versus Taiwan is that democracies can work if you do your homework. Now, in an autocracy, you don't need to do your homework. It's so much easier, at least up front. all this headachy stuff that I talked about, the schools, and the reporters and the politicians and everybody building trust and working together and being smart and the facts, you don't need to do any of that. You just need to concentrate your power up at the very top, either with a small group of people or just one guy. And as my wife reminds me, it's usually a guy. And that guy at the top doesn't need a million ways to get his people to cooperate. He just needs them to obey. Because in this war, they're not volunteers, they're draftees. And all he has to say to them is, do what I tell you, I will save your life, and know what I'm doing. But what if he doesn't? And that's why democracies are so inefficient sometimes and slow and chaotic. Because they're built on an objective fact. We're not perfect. Humans make mistakes. Even with the best of intentions, humans make mistakes. And if the human at the top has all the power and makes a mistake and there's no one there to check him or balance him or even question him, his mistake could kill people all around the entire world. When I wrote my fictional novel, World War Z, I put my zombie virus in the People's Republic of China. Not because I have anything personal against this country. It's because I needed a government that was willing to sit on the truth long enough for the virus to get out of control. And I didn't have to make it up. I just borrowed from history. I used the real-life scenario of the first Tsar, where the people at the top of the PRC said, no SARS here, don't worry about it. We've got it under control. We know what we're doing. Everything is fine. But it wasn't. It went all around the world. And then it happened again. The same system, the same mistakes. It happened again. And that's where democracies have strength. For everything I had just said about all those challenges and all the things you've got to do and the fragility of it, the citizens who have the ability to govern themselves have the ability to change course and self-correct. And we did that in the USA. We didn't like that the people that we had elected to protect us were letting us die, and we threw the bums out. And it wasn't easy, and I'm sad to say it wasn't bloodless, and I'm really sad to say it is not over. Because in my country, we are in the fight of our lives right now. We are in the fight for the soul of our country. We are in a fight to reverse those decades of neglect, and it is a real, real fight. But we have the freedom to fight. Citizens who don't have that freedom are trapped by the very same people that got them into this mess. And they better hope and pray that those with all the power have learned from their mistakes, because hopes and prayers are all they've got. Now, once again, I know my audience, and I know some people might say, no, we know you might be talking about some autocracies, but not ours. Our emperor is good and wise, enlightened, and as close to perfection as any human being can get. And to them, I say, maybe, for now. And I don't just say this as a proud American. I say this as a proud Italian American who is very much in touch with the history of my mother's tribe. And if history teaches us anything, it's that any system that gives you Caesar Augustus, who found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble, will eventually give you Nero, who left it a city of ashes. And if you take anything from the history of this pandemic as we look to the future and think about how we're going to get our people to protect themselves, history has taught us that Americans died because our system failed to do what it was designed to do. And Chinese people died because its system succeeded in doing exactly what it was designed to do.